Hello, my fellow writers. My name's Laura, and welcome back to my channel, Learn to Writer, where we talk about the mental challenges of being a writer. And today, we're going to talk about Gen AI. So, get ready for that. As we all know, Gen AI is everywhere, and there's a large cry against it for a lot of different reasons. And it's kind of an emotionally charged topic. And when that happens, it's really hard to get a rational view or any kind of honest discussion around that topic because, if you bring it up, there's people who are just going to, immediately need to tell you what their opinion is very loudly, right? So I am a writer, obviously. I've completed 2 novels. I have rough drafts for 2 more. And I also have a bachelor's in computer science from Virginia Tech. And I've been playing with various aspects of Gen AI basically since it first started gaining popularity. In general, I tend to believe that you can't really have an opinion about something unless you've actually explored that thing that you're expecting to have an opinion about, right? Like when the whole Twilight thing happened and everybody was so crazy about it and all that kind of stuff. I read all 4 books. Stephenie Meyer, she's a decent author, and those books were terrible. Just for plot reasons, right? Or I guess they were pretty terrible. So I believe that I am to a certain extent qualified to talk about Gen AI and the place that does or doesn't have in a writer's life. But I did want to start with the basics, right? Because it's possible that you don't exactly know what Gen AI is because of the noise, because everybody's hyping it up as what it can do and all that kind of stuff. In general, all generative artificial intelligence programs are actually large language models, sometimes referred to as LLMs by techie people. You may have heard that term before. Basically, the best explanation for explain it like I'm 5 to explain what an LLM does is it's a calculator only for words. You've likely used the calculator before. If you type 2 + 2, you get 4. This is not because there is a person or an intelligence inside the calculator that has memorized the numeric values of 2 and 4 and what the plus symbol means. It's because there are definitive values or definitions of each input and how it's evaluated in order to produce the output. Gen AI, large language models, do this exact process only on an insanely more complicated scale. Because words don't always mean the same thing, and putting them in a specific order doesn't result in a consistent right answer. There's context, there's intention, there's probability, there's bias, there's societal inputs, right? There's dozens, if not hundreds, of other considerations. And the programs of these LLMs are running an untold number of calculations using a set of instructions, their code, in order to place each word it outputs. Remember that scene in Avengers where Doctor Strange went through the millions of whatever futures and he came up with the one where they could defeat Thanos? It's kind of like that, only for every single word that an LLM puts out. In order to do all these calculations and to account for the context and intention and probability and bias and etc. of all the words, LLMs need human-created content, right? They need all of it. And this is probably the populace's biggest problem, even if it's not the only one, in dealing with Gen AI, because we all know you can basically look up anything you want to on the internet. You can look up anything, learn anything, be misled about anything. You can watch cat videos until you keel over from lack of sleep. But you are a human person and you have limited processing power. So even though all that information is there, out there on the internet, you are limited in how much you can remember it, process it, and into what form, right? I can read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but I can't recreate that book from memory, right? LLMs are not bound by the limitations of our puny meat sacks. They can not only take the entirety of the Harry Potter series in minutes, but also reproduce it exactly. Any limitations that it has on writing out Harry Potter for you are entirely of human design. There is no actual limitation to their processing power. And now LLMs have done this with basically the entire internet. And why, yes, that does sound like an infringement of copyright law. However, LLM creators claim that all the information on the internet is in a public space and thus can be used in whatever fashion that anybody who can read it wants. That includes being fed into their LLMs to learn from so that they can do all those complex calculations. These claims are not remotely true, right? I have my novel, Law of the Prince Charming. It's available for free on Wattpad for you to read, enjoy, be inspired by. But it is still my work. I own the copyright, and no one else has any legal basis to take my story, the words therein in that order, and make money off of it. However, copyright material like mine, has been stolen on a global scale, right? And the LLM creators have lots and lots of excuses. And unfortunately, lawmakers don't necessarily have the technical knowledge to actually understand what's going on, much less deal with all of the emergent technologies that are coming out right now. If you've ever looked into laws surrounding self-driving cars or e-bikes, right now, especially in the United States, lawmakers are far more interested in supporting businesses than they are in supporting individuals and their rights. These programmers who wouldn't actually have a product without stealing all this information from the internet are now selling the program that uses all this information for money, right? And that's what all these Gen AI programs actually are. And this is not even touching on the fact that LLMs are not yet profitable. They guzzle electricity and water, which they're somehow not paying for, and that's also causing shortages for families in the area of data centers. And the data centers are getting put up without any kind of environmental impact report. Basically, it's like a whole effing mess, right? There's a reason that people are upset about this. There's good reason that people are upset about this. And when I started writing the script for this video, the scope really got out of hand fast. So I have to pick and choose a little bit and try and steer us back to what I promised in the title, right? And that is how to be a writer with Gen AI as an option. I know that was a really long intro. I really appreciate you sticking with me. And I feel like knowing the background and all that kind of stuff is necessary for the decisions that we are going to make as writers, right? A rational discussion on the potential place in a writer's life, not a rational discussion on Gen AI. Truthfully, if Gen AI disappeared tomorrow like they were sued out of existence, I would be perfectly fine with that. And I think it would be justified. But for a moment, we're going to have to take all of that and set it aside and focus on what Gen AI is at its core. And that is, it is a tool. If you ignore everything else, Gen AI is a tool. It's a tool like a hammer is a tool. It's a tool like a camera is a tool, like a computer is a tool. A tool's purpose is to make tasks easier and or more efficient. Think about trying to put in a nail without a hammer. Some of you may have even tried before to put in a nail without a hammer. I definitely have tried rocks or very heavy boards. Hammers do their jobs there's a reason hammers exist, right? A camera takes a record of light hitting the film, and it means you don't have to draw the picture or the scene that you are looking at, right? You can just take a picture of it. Computers make calculations. They store data. They show cat videos, etc., right? All these things are tools, and they make our lives easier in certain ways. The main difference between all of those tools that I mentioned and Gen AI is that there's no assumption that your camera is just gonna frame a photo and take a photo and do all that on its own, without human guidance, right? And even though Gen AI has shown itself to be inaccurate and prone to error, lots of error, there is still a desire to believe, this is part of the promotion, right? They are promoting that Gen AI can just be given a task, it can be asked a question, and it gives you a perfectly good answer, right? Or it performs the task perfectly. It doesn't, but there is a desire for it to, and there are people out there promoting that that's exactly what it does, right? But it's not going to ever be a replacement for humans. I really believe that. It is a tool, and it is useful as a tool. I've been using Gen AI. At first it was curiosity. Basically it was curiosity. Now it's really intentionally and with purpose. And I've put a lot of time in discussion with other human beings. I've talked to lots of other human people with consideration on Gen AI and how I, as a writer, can use this tool. And so I'm going to take you through those considerations so that you can also consider them. So my first consideration was, how open am I going to be about using Gen AI? And from this video, you might kind of, yeah, I'm being pretty open about it. From the very beginning, I kind of understood that if I wasn't willing to be open about what I was using Gen AI for, then it really wasn't something I should be using it for, right? Like if I needed to, I mean, it's kind of like that with anything. If you need to hide something that you're doing, then there's probably a reason. And I know that in the future, I'm going to be open and transparent about anything that I do use Gen AI for. And I also know that that's not everybody's cup of tea, right? There are going to be people who are upset with me about this. There are going to be people who refuse to read my writing or be my fans because of this, that I'm using Gen AI at all. But in my being clear about my use of Gen AI, it allows those people to make those decisions for themselves, right? I am not withholding information that makes it impossible for other people to make decisions. And that's really kind of what I'm trying to do with this video too, is allowing you to like take these things into consideration so that you can give the people around you the information that they need in order to make whatever decisions they're going to decide. So after the consideration of how open I'm going to be about it, there is the consideration of what am I actually using it for. I never intended to have Gen AI write my novels for me. I like writing too much. I like the process of writing. I like being a writer, all that kind of stuff. However, I have given some serious consideration as to where that line is. If I say, here are my characters and my plot ideas, write me a 100,000 word novel, like, it can do that. That level is not something I want to do. However, what if I tell Gen AI to write a scene, and then I take that scene and I rewrite that in my own voice, right? What if I tell it to write a scene and then I take the ideas from that scene and I write my own scene from scratch? What if I tell Gen AI to give me an outline for a scene, that fits in the place that I know I need in my book, and then I write the scene based on that outline? What if I tell Gen AI to read something that I've written and have it give me suggestions that I either accept or reject? Those are all really different levels of assistance, and I actually don't know where I fall exactly yet. I know that I'm not at the, hey, write my book for me, because I'm not there. I enjoy the process of writing, and truthfully, right now, I'm not nearly stuck enough that I feel the need for any extra assistance. However, there is definitely the computer science part of my brain, right, that is curious. I loved writing code, right? I loved writing code almost as much as I like writing novels. Code is just so neat and orderly, because it has to be for a computer to read it. And then figuring out how to make it do what it is you needed it to do, and then having it output something that is actually useful, right? Like, I always loved that, and I love figuring out how things work. So there's part of me that wants to understand Gen AI logic, right? I want to understand what kind of responses it's going to put out. I want to understand what its hard points are of what it can and cannot do. I don't want Gen AI to write my novel so much as I want to see what novel it would output, if that makes sense, right? I want to see the novel. I don't want to do anything with the novel except read it, however. But I also know that there's a certain event horizon that it's impossible to come back from. If I tell it to write my novel and then I read that novel, some of those ideas are in my head. I'm not willing to have that happen quite yet. Like, I'm really curious because I kind of want to see what would happen, but I'm just not ready for that yet. However, I am going to tell you, because I said that I was going to be perfectly open and clear about what I have used Gen AI for. I'm going to tell you what I have used it for, right? In my current work in progress, the working title is Avalia, and it's about two apprentice mages in a low technology world, but there's a magical training program. It's basically a world that acts like an MMORPG that people go into, and then they learn how to be mages by doing quests and getting gear and fighting monsters and all that kind of stuff. So basically acts like an MMORPG. This means that in addition to the story and the plot and the characters and all this kind of stuff, there's 32 zones. They all have their own unique locations, quests, NPCs, mobs, in addition to countless skills, weapons, armor, items, mounts, skins, like all the stuff that makes up the feel and the set dressing of an MMORPG. Now, while I came up with all the major locations and skills and etc. like myself, because I'm a discovery writer and so like I just kind of made that stuff up as I needed it, I then used Gen AI to flesh out the details, right? Give me some locations that can exist within this zone that I've already created, and it'll give me suggestions, right? I also handed it the currency system and the animate naming system that my partner had created for me. It helped me determine how much weapons would cost compared to potions, compared to trinkets, and what the payout for different quests of different ranks are. Basically, this leads me to my third and final consideration, which is why am I using Gen AI to do this, right? Because I could do it myself. I do a lot of world building in my books, right? I write secondary fantasy. The world building is fairly complex. I haven't needed it in the past, right? I have done these things. However, we get back to the answer is that because Gen AI is a tool, and the tool exists to make jobs easier and or more efficient. Because let's be honest, when I'm left to my own devices, I would have just left that currency system to flounder and be rife with like inaccuracies, and I would have just put in placeholder amounts until like I finally get around to having to do it on the final edit, and then it's like that means it's not integrated into anything, right? It's there because it has to be there, but it's not really there, right? You can't write anything around that. And that's how I've gotten around money systems in the past. I don't want to have to put up with that. I don't want to have to deal with that, right? Like that is not what I find fun about writing, and it's not an important part of the story. And I could leave it out, but now I don't have to because Gen AI can give me those answers, right? It can do that for me and make it a less painful process, which then enhances the story, enhances the world without it actually writing any of the story for me. And that's the type of thing that I'm choosing to use it for, right? It's giving me ideas, it's helping me flesh out things that I otherwise would just not flesh out. For you who's watching this, you're going to have to consider these things on whether or not you're going to use Gen AI at all, and if you do use it, how much you are going to use it, right? There's charged emotions in this space, right? You have to consider what your own goals are, what your own morals are, and whatever decision that you make is yours and yours alone, right? I know that there are people who are watching this video who are coming for the exact question of, can Gen AI write my novel for me? The simple answer is no. I hope you didn't think that the answer was going to be any more complex than that. The answer is Gen AI cannot write your novel for you. Now, Gen AI can write a novel for you, but it will not be your novel. You know, right now it's not that great at writing entire novels. It's going to get better. I know it's going to get better because it's going to keep getting programmed. It's going to keep getting more information and all that kind of stuff. But even if you feed it your writing, which, by the way, you actually have to do in order to feed it into Gen AI so that it can write like you have to write, it can only ever imitate the writer and the person that you were, the person that you were when you wrote those words. It can never predict the writer that you're going to become because it can't predict the person that you're going to become. You know, every passing moment that you live and have experiences, you change. And there's no way to predict that. Like, you are the only one who is going to take those experiences in and become the person that you're going to be, right? Every time you sit down and write, you write as the person that you are in that moment, right? You're no longer the person that you were, and you are becoming the person that you're going to be, right? Like every moment. This is the reason that you are the only person who can ever write your book. I am going to say that, you know, for some people it doesn't matter. It's not about writing the book, it's about having the book written. For those people, that's fine if that's what you want. Gen AI will write a book for you, right? It'll take your specifications, it'll take a couple of hours instead of months or years. And there's probably an audience for it out there too, because there's other people who don't necessarily care where their stories are coming from. And here's the thing. I am not in any way going to tell you to use or not use Gen AI. You are your own person, and you're perfectly capable of making your own decisions about it. You are at least, you know, looking into it a little bit and not just making your decisions based on the ephemeral feelings of the universe, right? You're actually getting some information and making your decision based on top of that. But I will say that if you use Gen AI to write a novel, you're never going to be considered a writer. Like, the writing community will not accept you as a writer because you're not writing. That's just like a fact, right? That's like not an insult. That's not me saying, you're not good enough. It's, if you don't write, you're not a writer. Even if you use Gen AI and then like later on you forego it, you just have to accept the fact that that might still be attached to you. Making decisions, whatever those decisions are, you are allowed to make whatever decisions you want to make. However, it does not protect you from the responsibility and the consequences of those decisions. If you use Gen AI on the down low and you pretend that it's your own work and all this kind of stuff, you're lying to people. You're legitimately lying to people about that because people want to know. People are actively asking it, and if you're saying no and just whatever, then you are actively lying about it. And there's consequences to that. Outside of what other people are how other people are going to respond to that, right? Because if you want to be a writer, using Gen AI is going to make you miss out on a lot of the struggle and lessons that would make you a better writer. And sometimes when you're new to writing, you're not quite aware of what you're losing, right? You just want it to be easier. That's part of the human condition. I'm like that right now with drawing. I'd like to be a better drawer, but I don't necessarily want to draw. No. But I have spent the past 20 years focused on writing, struggling, writing, and I'm good. I might even be approaching great, but that is because of all of the struggle. I learned every bit of that experience. And it also means that I can look at what Gen AI does as a tool. I can decide whether or not I am losing something by using it. Because there's certain things that I've learned how to do, and I can just use it to make certain things easier, and there's certain things I haven't learned how to do, and I still need to struggle through those. After 20 years, I'm getting to the point now where I can kind of make those decisions, but not everybody is there, right? Not everybody is where I am yet. And I don't want you to use it to help with your struggle and then, like, 5 years down the road, realize how much you were missing out on, right, by struggling by yourself. My suggestion, for whatever it's worth, is these considerations that I put into this video, like, figure out where your line is. Figure out what your line is before you need it. Because, like, if you're writing a book and you get stuck and you're frustrated and you've been staring at a blank page for like weeks, that's not the time that you really want to be thinking about the philosophical discussion of whether or not you should be using Gen AI in order to move forward with your story, right? You want to make it when you're thinking clearly and when you're thinking about who you want to be as a person, as a writer, and where you want to get your experience from, right? Writing is what's going to make you a better writer. Struggling through those scenes, finding the character that surprises you, sitting with the story that's living in your head and refusing to leave until you get it on the page. I have been stuck staring at a blank page for weeks and weeks before, and I have banged my head against it trying tool after skill after suggestion for getting past it, and I am a better writer for it. And Gen AI could not have done that for me, and it can't do it for you, right? And you don't want it to. That's the good stuff. Those are the experience points that you put towards your writer's intuition, right? That is what makes you a better writer. If you just want a book written, then do what you want. And I truthfully, sincerely wish you the best. I don't have any judgment about that. Now, I am going to say you probably aren't going to like any of my other videos because I basically talk about how to deal with the mental struggle of being a writer. So this might be the last time that you ever see me, but truthfully, if that's what you want and you want to use Gen AI for it, then go do it. And for the rest of you, the ones who want to be writers, write your books, have your struggles, beat your head against the wall, and, produce books that are yours. Now, if you have any thoughts on this, I genuinely would like to hear them in the comments, right? This is a conversation worth having with other human people. But obviously, let's keep it polite, let's keep it useful, because truthfully, if you have other questions that I didn't address in this video, I'd like to be able to talk to those talk about those with you, right? And if you like this video, go ahead and like this video. If you're interested in more videos on how to reduce your writing struggle and increase your writer's intuition at the same time, then subscribe for more videos, because that's what we do here at Learn to Writer. And I will see you in the next one. All right, bye-bye.